Okay, well, good afternoon. We're going to talk today for about the next 30 minutes about cash flow management. Cash flow management can make or break your business. So, a couple things that I typically do to try to help my cash flow is I use this little tool called an Area Publisher Wall Calendar. Most area publishers that are West Coast, some of the East Coast people that are on the same mailing schedule will have this. If you've never seen this before, you might want to email me or call me. There might be a chance that you might be on a different mailing schedule on the East Coast possibly than we're on the West Coast, and so these dates wouldn't pertain to you, but the concept will pertain to you. What I've tried to do here is I've tried to put together a tool. A lot of you are familiar with this, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but it's a tool. It has key dates for production. It has key dates, I call them money and art dates. Money and production dates. And what I try to do is I try to look at these dates here, and you'll look at here we are in February, and I see that on February 10th, I have a production payment number 2 for the Winter Bee issue. My second payment for printing is basically due, guess what? 2 weeks after in-home delivery date, okay? And so I know approximately what that is. And if you don't know what that is, what we can simply do is tell you that payment number 1 is always 3 weeks before the in-home delivery date. Payment number 1 is always $2,500. It's always 3 weeks before the in-home delivery date. It doesn't matter if you do an 8-page, a 12-page, a 16-page, a 20 or 24-page book. It's always $2,500. It's a deposit from you to me, your print broker, before I go to press. Make sense? Your second printing payment / production payment to me is due 2 weeks after the magazines come out. And that's why you'll see on this little Area Publisher Wall Calendar, it'll say 2 weeks after the magazines come out here, it says production payment number 2 is due. Well, if you do a 12-page magazine, you're going to pay less money on payment number 2 than if a guy did a 16-page magazine or a 20 or 24-page magazine. So simply put, you have to kind of understand, you can actually get a pen out and kind of write in the dollar amounts that you will typically owe. How much is payment number 1? Always, right? Does it?
It could be more if you're going bigger. You should know that.
Typically, yeah. Like Amy in Boise, Idaho, pays more than $2,500. She mails to, she prints 50,000 pieces. Okay, so she has a larger one. But on average, if you're doing an AP, doing a 15K or 30K mailing zone, you pay $2,500. Okay. The second thing is if you look at some of these different dates and stuff, you'll see a little picture here that has a postage stamp on it. That's your postage. And you pretty much know by now, if you've done a magazine or two, approximately what your postage is. If you do a 15,000 mailing zone, it's going to be probably around $2,500 with current, 2015 postage rates. If you do a zone of 30,000, guess what it costs? Double it. $5,000, that's the postage. Okay? And then there's other dates on here. But getting back to this is, how do you control cash flow? I review the AP wall calendar. I do it daily. I'm always looking up at it, trying to forecast different things. Mark's talked about adding that into his Google calendar, I believe, which kind of allows him digitally to kind of look at things. Everybody's different on how they want to manage stuff. I know that Susan and I talk, that she does the same kind of thing. I'm a paper guy. Other people are digital people. But basically, you have to identify when is your money due, right? And then you have to figure out, how am I going to go out and make sales, get deposits, and if I get, let's say I go out and I make 3 sales this week and 3 people pay me $300 a piece. So I got $900 in my pocket. And I'm looking at a personal bill that I got to pay out, and it's $900. It's real easy to say, well, gosh, I got to pay that bill. I'm going to take my cost of goods money, which is, don't you touch that, that's off limits, that's your cost of goods, and pay a personal bill, right? You've got to figure out a way to collect your money that comes in, okay, and be able to say and forecast, this is when these different payments are due, and be able to save those funds for that. Because there's nothing worse, and in 11 years, I've seen this happen, nothing worse than you work really hard, you make payment number 1 for printing, you're paying your graphic designer, I'm assuming, and now it's time for postage, and the checks have to be down at a certain printer, a certain location, And then the printer calls me and says, I'm missing this person's check. And I call that person and say, what's up? Where's your postage check? And they said, I don't have the money. Wait. Dave just now made their problem kind of my problem, the printer's problem, this appointment thing that you guys now understand at the USPS. This is not a fun subject. They basically, you need to get a line of credit or something to get that handled because, as you heard from Greg Schrader, it's not pretty. And when I hear that there's missing postage checks, guess who gets the phone calls? And I'm kind of responsible to say, I'm trying to shepherd. I don't know what's going on. Let me find out. Okay? Here's some things that I have done over the years that have worked well for me. I've asked for money. And I simply ask with a very confident attitude. Probably the time when I sold Ty an ad, I probably said, it's a $600 ad, and here's the language I'm going to use. You might want to write this down. I found this to be extremely effective language to help get money. He says, well, yeah, I think we'll give this a try. I say, great. In order to process the order and start the artwork, I just need a check for $300. You can make it out to Hometown Values. In order to process the artwork, in order to process the order and start the artwork, I just need a check for, pick a number. I usually go half down. If I'm early in the cycle, I can get half down. Why? He can write me a check for $300. Then I send an ad over to my graphic designer who makes changes. I take it back to the client or email it to the client. They make more changes. Back to the GA, the graphic artist, right? Back to the client. He says, I'm happy, signed off. Now, if I did that via email, nothing wrong with that. I sign lots of ads off on email. But if he did that on email and approved it on email, was I there to get that second $300 bill? No. So one of my keys to cash flow management is I try to get that final proof out to the client face to face if I can, sign off, and I try to collect the balance then. Because have I been paid in full by that client before the magazines go to press if I did terms like that? Absolutely, right? And then I'm also going to stand here in front of you right now and say, as you get more established in your business, you have a little bit more flexibility. You're not hand to mouth. You're not living hand to mouth. You're kind of build a little bit of a float, right, in your account. And so I'll give you a great example. Let's talk about this guy named Ty who owns Extreme Auto Service. Ty, why don't you tell him about our terms? Do you kind of know what they are now that you're kind of an AP?
It's 300 when it comes, or when we figure out what we're going to do, and then 300 or 296 when it's going to press. So it's every 3 months, 15 days apart.
Yeah, so right now what happens is in the perfect world, I'd see Ty the first week of a 5-week sales cycle. I'd approve that he's coming in, I'd ask for a check. Between the next couple weeks, he'd sign his proof off, I get the other money.
Yep.
That's not how we do it. For all have sinned and fallen short, right? I'm not perfect. Ty and I, what we do is this. I go see him mid-cycle, he writes me a check for $300, he signs his proof off within a week. Then my sample magazines show up. And what I'm about to tell you here is nothing wrong if you do this occasionally, but if you want to be a cash flow killer, don't do this with too many clients. And that's wait till the physical magazines, your sample magazines, show up in your hands. Then I take them in at Ty and say, Ty, the ads are coming out, hot off the press. Here they are. I need to pick up a check for $296, the balance of your half-page ad. And then he writes me a check. I still got paid, didn't I? But let me ask you a simple question. When did the majority of my cost of goods happen with $2,500 down payment 3 weeks before that date when I had to pay Jim the printer, right? When did postage due? Well, it was due a week later, right? So what I'm getting at is if you take your cost of goods, if you've ever sat down and added up your printing payment number 1, your postage, your graphic design costs, maybe your B&O cost, business and operations cost, it's about 2% of your total sales, I think it is. If you've added all that up, okay, and then you also add in payment number 2 for your printing, if it's a 12-page, a 16-page, did you know that about 70% of your cost of goods are due physically before you get those sample magazines? Think about that. I'll say it again. If you add up your payment number 1, your postage, and your graphic design costs, the only thing in cost of goods that's really missing is that payment number 2, right? The balance of what you owe for printing. But that's about 70% of your money is due prior to the magazines physically going in the mailbox, correct? So think about that. Can I as an owner publisher walk around and let very many people have a special deal like Ty where they pay half down and the balance when I bring the physical magazines to them? Guess what? 3 weeks before that I had to pay payment number 1, right? 2 weeks before that I had to pay my postage, right? I had to pay my graphic designer along the way. So what I'm saying is, understand this. Would you ever go into a business? Would you ever go into a tire store, buy 4 sets of tires, look at the guy, and expect to pay him 3 months later? Probably not, right? Would you ever go into a restaurant, eat the food, and walk out? Right? You know, John was telling me he likes to dine and dash. You know, so we're gonna. But the answer is no. You probably never do that. Well, why is advertising any different? Really, I think you need to sit down with someone and to set expectations. That's really what I want to talk about here today is, can you set proper expectations? I look at someone and say, hey, Ty, I'd love to do business with you. Ultimately, if we do business, here's how our payment policy is. Notice I'm not going to let my client, the tail wag the dog. I'm going to tell him this is how we operate. And if I deal with a home improvement guy, someone that I can't physically stop in and see, what's the best thing to probably do? Credit card, right? I just tell them, I say, I require, there's my language, I require a Visa or MasterCard. What would you prefer? Don't you take a check? Nope. This is to a home improvement contractor. And then I get a credit card. Why? Because I can charge that card right when I have these cost of goods payments to help create a cash flow to help pay for those. Make sense? You will get in trouble as an area publisher if you get partial down and then let's say you have an arrangement where they pay half down and the balance when you bring the sample magazines to them, right? And you go do that and the guy's gone on vacation for a week. Or he's not there when you drop off the magazines, right? Or you go drop off the magazines and she says, hey, can you give me another week or so? I had to pay payroll. You ever heard that? All of a sudden you're like, whoa, I've also become a partner in your business. Helping you with your cash flow hurts my cash flow, right? So ultimately what you have to do is just be firm in the way that you're addressing things. I'm going to talk about this real quick, this thing called the break-even analysis. I want you to take this piece of paper. I threw a lot of stuff in front of you here. The break-even analysis, I took yours, Mark, that's why. Sorry, I had to start my talk. What I want to teach you here really quick is a way to help establish value. And it's a way for you to help improve your cash flow. So ultimately, as you're talking to a business owner, sometimes before I'll even give the price, some of you guys have gone out in the field with me and I ask a lot of questions and I'll just say to someone, hey, what's your average sale? And you're a plumber, right? Licensed plumber, journeyman plumber. Okay, so on average, and I know you got everything from the leaky faucet that's a quick 30-minute fix to the full-blown yippee-ki-yay that you got to fix, whatever, right? But if I say, what's your average ticket? What's your average ticket? About $500 is your average sale. And how often does somebody use your service? Obviously, plumbing, it's every lunar eclipse. They don't need you on a regular basis typically, correct? Right. So how often is that? Maybe once a year, twice a year?
Twice.
Okay. See, I'm not going to use my language. I'm going to use his. I would have said $500 once a year. He just says twice a year. I like that number because now it's $1,000 on average is the annual value of a customer is about $1,000 for you. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this ad in my magazine that we're thinking about running here, this ad in my magazine is a half-page ad. It's $600 if you go 4 mailings a year with us, quarterly. So it's $600 per mailing. So how many customers would you need to break even on an investment of $600? 8?
Average.
Oh, okay. So I would sit and I would say, you just told me that your average sale is $500. The person buys you twice a year. That's $1,000 in revenue. That's not profit. It's $1,000 in revenue, okay? And my ad is $600. So what I like to do here is you'll see on here it says, take the yearly value of a customer, $1,000, divide it by the cost of the ad $600, he's probably going to say, I need about 2 or 3 customers to break even. And I'm going to look at him and say, well, we're mailing to 15,000. And what that just did is establishes a lot of value. By the higher the value you can get, the stronger opportunity you have to basically get paid, right? Because it's only when they say, well, I'm not really sure if I want to do this, or I can't really afford this, all this kind of stuff. Ultimately, you want to get paid. So the break-even analysis is a great tool. I'm going to give you another example. Let's use a restaurant, okay? Let's say that, let me ask you, Roxanne, you own a restaurant. You own Prohibition Grill, right, in Everett, Washington, okay? So what is your average ticket for dinner? And they'll sometimes say, oh, here's what they'll typically say. Oh, lunch is about $8 and dinner's about $12. Well, they're talking about a single person. I don't care about a single person coming in, with all due respect. I want to talk about a couple or a family, the average ticket of a...
Probably 55.
About 55. Why don't we say 50? Why? Because I'm not good at math. Okay, and I'm going to go, okay, about 50 bucks. How often? I want to make it simple for me. She could go, oh, $58.70. I'm going, why don't we say 50 bucks? So how often does someone eat here?
Like once every 3 months.
Once every 3 months. Okay, so $50 every...
Must not be great.
Yeah, I was going to say, well...
This is an expensive restaurant.
Okay, so it's $50, and they come in every 3 months, right? So how many times is that a year? 4? So what's $50? What's the average sale? $50 times the frequency of use, 4. What does that equal? $200. Okay. Well, a 3rd-page ad in Hometown Values is $446. How many customers do we need to break even?
Over 2.
2.
And of course, it's more than that, because 2 just covers the marketing advertising costs, right? We have to pay for the food and stuff like that. So you can double that, triple it, whatever. Let's say it's 6, 8, 10 customers or whatever. So keep in mind, someone's got to come in and spend $50 every 3 months, which I think is really conservative. And that means the annual value of that customer is $200. This ad is $446. And I look at them and I say, we mail to 15,000 homes. Would you like to give it a try? How's that for a hard closing tool, line? I nod them on in. You want to give it a try? Nod them on in. And
You actually
I do that.
show them.
I literally made copies of this for you guys. It's on htvtraining.com. You can go on there, print these off, cut them in half, take them in the field, and literally use a half a sheet at every presentation if you want. I think it's one of the best tools I've ever used. Ty, you own a business. I know it differs from wheel repair to some guy buying car audio to window tinting. Let's say you're a window tinting guy. What's your average sale?
$300.
$300. How often does someone use you for window tinting?
Once a year.
Once every 5-10 years, right? It's a once and done typically, unless they do another car, right? So $300, $300 to run is your decent margin.
Yeah.
See, that's what I say with everybody. Decent margin. They all say, yeah. That's what they'll say. Yeah, you'll find out. Decent margin. Yeah. And I go, yeah, decent margin, great. Okay, so $300 is his cost to do window tinting. A 3rd-page ad in Hometown Values is $446 if you go 4 mailings a year, so it's $446 quarterly. How many customers do you need to break even? And he might not be good at math. I might not be good at math. I get a little calculator and go, let's see, $300 divided by 446 is, Debbie?
I don't know, 70.
You got the calculator.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I was taught to write it on the agreement. So you're doing the break even with
Oh,
the agreement.
right
and
on the
it's
agreement.
on-
So we got that little notes area. Maybe you
Yes.
put it right there. See, what you're really trying to do is trap the customer with their own words. That's what you're really trying to do. So a guy says $300 window tinting. He does it 4 times a year.
Copy, I consider it, he sells himself.
How about strategic selling, we'll call it.
Sells himself.
So that's what you're doing. You're trying to help the person sell themselves. But I use this little sucker all the stinking time. I don't have to physically use a piece of paper anymore because it's simple to me. Average sale, frequency of use, annualized value of a customer divided by the ad. And over time, it becomes very simple for you to use that. and understand it. Did you have another question?
Well, I was just gonna
Comment?
make another point. There's a lot of people out there that when they advertise it, they think that they're gonna get a 3%
Mhm.
return. Oh, I'm going to 30,000 addresses, I'm gonna have 3,000 people walk through my door.
Right.
You're setting up expectations, and I think that's really important because advertising isn't measured like that anymore.
Right.
I mean, even the grocery stores aren't even looking to get 1%, 1.5% return, so it
Someone
knocks them down the lane of reasonable expectations.
Yeah, someone maybe read a marketing newsletter or something like that in 1988 or something like that and said, yeah, you can expect a 2% return if you're a restaurant and you do a buy one, get one free. I'm like, I don't think so. The point is, the second piece is this. I have this thing here called your return on investment. What I like about it, yeah, it does start out extremely high point return, which you'll never get 10%, 5%, 1%, but I like it when it gets down into the 1/4%. Look at this, 15,000 homes, 1/4% brings you 38 new customers. Okay, 38 new customers, $100 average ticket is $3,800 in revenue. Then here's one with a lower ticket of $40, and here's a lower ticket of $20. So there's different columns. What a cool little tool to use to kind of, and again, guess what? I can never give a guarantee. Sometimes a guy will look at me, he'll say, can you guarantee this is going to work? I can look him dead in the eyes, I can guarantee you one thing. I can guarantee you I will mail this magazine to 15,000 homes. My job is to bring them in. Your job is to scare them away. That's what I tell them, okay? Because I can't guarantee anything. Ultimately, what I'm going to do is I'm going to package and help direct his sales piece, mail it out to 15,000 homes in his primary trade area, and I'm going to do it in an attractive ad vehicle. He's going to get sample copies, and if he wants, I will provide him with a certified postal receipt. So about a week after the magazines come out, what do you guys get from me? A certified postal receipt. It takes a while for the post office to get into Journal Graphics, who did the mail prep, who gets it to me, who I get them to you guys. Ultimately, what you're getting is a certified mail prep that says, hey, we mailed 15,000 or we mailed 30,000. So I'm getting a little bit tight on time. A couple other things I wanted to talk about real briefly with cash flow management. I sit on a board, a fundraising board, and one of the ladies who came to our board meeting brought this in, and it was really good information on just how to ask for money. Now, granted, it's in the kind of the field of fundraising, so you read it and kind of go, well, that's a little bit different. But there's some really good information on here. Okay, Robert and I were talking at a break here recently. He's a licensed plumber here. He's along to support his wife and kind of see what this is all about with hometown and stuff. And he says, when I present price, and that's it. That's kind of what I do too. I think if you are weak in thinking that the first thing you're going to do is start discounting your price, please stop discounting your price. Our 4-time rate is a earned rate. It's a earned frequency. They need to commit to 4 mailings to get that. And if they don't, I have a thing called a test drive. I'm willing to offer my new customers a 4-time rate, discounted rate, for a 2-issue test drive. I probably sell personally 60, 70, 80% of my brand new customers on the test drive. Why? Instead of charging them the 1-time rate, which is high by design, I can charge them the 4-time rate, the discounted rate, but they only have to commit to 2 mailings. I'm pretty comfortable with that. You'd think I'd be up here saying, oh no, they gotta go 4 times. Well, maybe that works for you. I tell you, if I can build a relationship with them, and you know what else? If their ad is bombed 2 issues in a row, I don't want them to spend their money with my magazine. It's obviously not a good fit. I don't want him in my magazine. I released a guy the other day who still had 2 more ad on a 4-issue. I actually signed a 4-issue. He ran the first one, didn't work that well. Ran the second one. He wants to see, but he's not happy. I said, look, why don't we just kill it right now? I'm not interested in having you in the magazine. 2 more issues if you're not wanting to be here. That's what I did. Yeah, he's going to talk to people. He's like, really? I go, dude, that's how I roll. I mean, you know, that's just kind of how the thing is I'm not going to sit and hold the guy if he doesn't want to be in there. Ultimately, I hope there's some tips on here that you guys can pick up. And then lastly, familiarize yourself basic accounting terminology. Area publishers come into Hometown Values of all different backgrounds and experiences and stuff. I needed to learn a lot about the fundamentals years ago when I got into business. I needed to know what the difference between profit and revenue was. Sometimes I'll call up an AP and I'll say, tell me what your revenue is. And they say, I made 3,000. I made 8,000. No, you need to understand your terminology. I didn't ask you what your profit was. I asked you what your revenue was. How much sales revenue have you created? So read these terms, kind of help understand them a little bit. My hope is that as you go out and you sell ads, you get deposits. I'm not big on monthly payment programs. I think they're a pain. Ultimately, I believe we have an incredible value. I believe we should be paid for our services. And I believe that if you go out and ask for money with confidence and set those expectations up on the front end, this is how our terms work. I'll get a half down now so I can process the order and start the artwork. And then when I bring the proof to you and you sign it off, I get the balance. Does that sound fair to you? And you know what 80, 90% of them are going to say? Yeah, that sounds fair to me. There's your terms. Write it on your space agreement. Okay? And let people know that's how it is. So just be confident with that. I hope you guys go and grow. Okay? Thank you.